This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to do some mail time today. I'm going to review some projects that were sent in by viewers like you. Let's get right to it. First up is this book called Conundrum. This comes to us from Rio Arianto. Rio includes a note which reads, "Dear Ted, I hope this letter finds you well. I am Rio, a photographer based in Bali, Indonesia. I used to work in the commercial photography field for several years, but I found it wasn't really my ultimate calling. I've always been interested in the idea of abstraction in photography. So here's a compilation of some of my works in this genre called Conundrum. This book is printed in matte textured paper. I just love the depth and tonality when printed on this paper. The book is self-published, printed by myself and manually binded. The photographs in my collection for the last 8 months or so. So yeah, would love to hear your feedback. Your channel is always informative and encouraging. Thanks, Ted. Take care. Sincerely, Rio." Rio, this book is fantastic. And the fact that it is hand-binded, this is actually very impressive. You've done an awesome job on here. I do love the paper choice. I love the way it's printed. And I love your idea of abstraction in photography. And this is something that I've talked a lot about in some of my workshops for the zine stuff that I've done. And it's something that I've always been fascinated with. When you're dealing with abstraction, you're doing it through reality. And I think you're really nailing it on a couple of these. I'm going to share a couple of my favorite images in here that I think are just outstanding. The still life of the plate with the utensils is really nice. The pattern in the escalators is quite lovely too, but my favorite in here by far is the horse. I love this shot. I would love to see you move more in this direction. I love the idea that you're doing a lot of abstraction through still lives, lighting, cropping, composition. But in here we have the animation of having a figure in with it, and there's a lot of mystery. You've kind of cut the head off. I really like this photo. It really draws me in, and I really want to see more of this kind of thing coming from you. But man, excellent job. I really love this. I will link up to Rio's work in the show description below. Make sure you support your fellow colleagues. I don't know if he's selling this book or not, but if he is, this is worth having. Highly recommended. So Rio, much appreciated. You should be proud of this. All right, next up, I really love this. This comes to us from a gentleman named Robert Pistocchi. This is a handmade book called Carryon. And this is really awesome. Robert also enclosed a note, and by the way, I just want to note this because I think it's awesome, is that he wrote both of his notes on Walgreens medical prescription paper, which is very quirky and awesome, so I know we're in for a treat here. Anyway, Robert writes, "Dear Ted, I would like to thank you for being such an inspiration during my photographic journey all these years. I would like to humbly share my latest photo zine or book, not sure what to call it, as a token of my gratitude. As a career pharmacist, I find myself frequently counseling patients through the loss of loved ones and coming to terms with their own terminal illnesses. I've always wondered how I managed to condense these experiences and emotions into a project. My attempt is Carrion, a visual novel which explores the complex interplay of family dynamics, consumerism, and mortality surrounding estate sales. Hope you find meaning in it, Robert." Robert, this is absolutely fantastic. There are several things that I want to point out on here that I just absolutely love. First of all, the concept is very unusual, which I love, and it's done extremely well. You've done an awesome execution on here. You have a narrative in here that creates a lot of mystery to it, and I love the black and white images on facing pages. I love the whole idea of estate sales and the things people leave behind. And what I really love about it is a lot of these images with people in them, you've shot backlit. And I think it has a really interesting effect. It adds an element of mystery and kind of a question that you're asking the reader, and it really draws me in anyway, and I just love seeing these. The other thing that I love that you're doing is there's several of these spreads in here where you have essentially an image on the left that's just empty space, and then you contrast that on the image of the right with a portrait of somebody picking up an object. And what I love about that is because when you get into printing and you get into bookmaking and layout, and I talk about this in my zine classes when I do them, is that you have to realize that people are looking at both images at the same time. So they do have a relationship and they need to work together. And I love the idea of just having a shot of an empty space. It leads a question, but that shot on its own probably wouldn't be very exciting. But when you have it paired up with something with a person in it, it says something very profound. I love the story in here. I love the way you've executed this. The other thing that I love about this is it is hand printed and hand bound. I don't know if you guys can see the stitching on here. And this is something that I encourage of everyone. It is so unique and interesting. I mean, there are many places that you can have commercial zines or books produced now, but just to do it on your own printer and just stitch it like that gives it a really awesome personal touch. So, Robert, I really can't say enough good things about this. You guys should check it out. Again, I should have looked this up earlier. I don't know if Robert's selling these, but I will put a link to his website and all that. Very cool project, and man, I'm impressed. very nicely executed, so good job. All right, we got some more stuff here. I've got a really nicely produced book called Uplooker, and we've got Rhythm and Light with some dance images. But real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, who are the always awesome folks over at Squarespace. How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit Get Started. You can start by selecting from an impressive collection of customizable templates, or you can do what I do, build your own. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like books or prints? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from, and just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Squarespace has the capabilities to not only set up your online store and collect payments, but they also give you all the tools that you're going to need to be successful. Managing shipping and payment options, manage your orders, and engage with your customers. They even give you the tax tools that you need to keep things organized and stay compliant. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, so next up we have this zine called Rhythm and Light. This comes to us from Jason Peguero. Jason also enclosed a note which reads, Dear Ted, my name is Jason Peguero. I'm a photographer based in Los Angeles. I've been a fan of your channel since discovering it during my college days. I've enclosed my first zine, Rhythm and Light, which I created in 2022. The zine features a series of photos capturing various dance styles from ballet to hip-hop, all shot on Kodak Tri-X 400 with a Bronica ETRS over a span of a year. Instead of following a strict layout, it groups similar poses together. While the lighting varies across different styles, I aim to use a single light source to define the dancers' physiques and create a moody atmosphere. Due to financial constraints, unfortunately, I couldn't make more copies of this zine. What you're holding is one of 2 copies I produced. I hope you enjoy it, and I welcome any feedback you might have, as I am always eager to improve. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Best regards, Jason. Jason, I certainly understand financial constraints, and I am very honored and flattered that you have sent me one of 2 copies that exist. I think that's also kind of cool because you've got that scarcity element that you can play to also. It's very rare, we should say. But I want to talk about this. First of all, I love the concept Rhythm and Light. I think this is awesome. I love to shoot dance images. There's something about the human figure. It's really cool. I'm going to give you some constructive criticism to think about for when you do your next zine. And I think the design, the layout, all that is fine on here. I think the only issue that I have with it, and you pointed this out, is that you go for similar poses on facing spreads. And this is something that I want you to work on a little bit, because the deal is as a viewer, and you could take this, not just me, but anybody looking at this, is after a while I know that every time I turn the page, I'm going to see 2 facing dancers. So it kind of has a monotony to it that I would try to find ways to vary it up. I think you could go with that idea, the 2 facing dancers with similar poses. It works well together. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I would try to break that up a little more than you did. You have a couple that are full page spreads. I would try to break it up with something that's maybe a little bit more uncomfortable compositionally, where maybe the figures aren't always in such a predictable pose. That being said, the other thing is I do like your photography. I'm not a huge fan of full bleed, and you do that throughout the book. The main reason is because I start to lose the borders of the composition and I don't have anything defining it. One other thing I want to point out, this is your best shot in here. I absolutely love this. The reason I do is because you got in really tight on here, and all of a sudden I start to get a lot of interest in the composition. I love the idea of the pose. I love the fact that you've got it closer to the edge. You're not using any wasted space or dead space in there. And what I have a problem with on some of these is that as I go through, they're wonderful images, but I just don't have any composition in here. The composition ends up being the pose of the dancer, and you could argue that that actually is fairly important. But I think for a photography book, those are two things I would like to see you hone in on a little more. And it's interesting that there's that one image in here that I think just really works. It just comes together. I love the idea. I love what you're doing with it. I think just exploring the whole idea, if you're going to be talking about rhythm and light, is to indicate more rhythm and definitely more light. I would work more with shadows, try to get it a little more on the abstract side, but I think you're off to a wonderful start. And again, there's some constructive criticism from me, but man, keep going, because I think you're doing some wonderful things. You've got some good dancers to work with, and you can obviously operate the camera. I would just work on a couple of those things, and I think you'd have something that's really tight. So anyway, thank you for sending, much appreciated. I will link up to Jason's work below, so check him out. All right, so next up is this book, which comes to us from Paul Charles Bartlett. It is called Uplooker, and I'm going to read you a bit of his note that he included. It reads, "Dear Ted, I have just released my new book, and it's an absolute pleasure to share it with you, and thank you for your inspiration over the years. My new book, Uplooker, documents life on the streets of my hometown, Adelaide, through the COVID pandemic. The opening page of this book speaks as to how and why this project came to be, and gives some insight into what can often be a controversial topic in the photography world, photographing people who call the streets home. For me, as the book explains, it came down to intent. If you were photographing someone with an exploitative or demeaning intent, then of course you're going to feel that energy in the photos, and that's something that is not of interest to me in the slightest. But to sit and interact with someone for lengthy periods of time, then photograph people from the point of view of compassion, with a desire to capture who they are irrespective of their so-called social status, then hopefully that this energy and emotion is conveyed in the photographs." Paul also goes on to say that proceeds from this book, he's donating $5 from every book sold to a fantastic organization locally. Paul, I appreciate this, and I think this is an interesting subject to talk about. First of all, I think this is extremely well printed. Congrats on that. Doing your own book, in the graphic design, everything is top-notch. I love the way it's bound. There's some layout issues. I'll get to that in a second. But all in all, I love this. But I want to talk about the controversial topic, and you know it is, and you set me up for that. I don't get a negative energy from this at all. In fact, the first thing I want to say is that you are an incredible portrait photographer. I think there's some stuff in here right from the beginning. This is an amazing portrait. I mean, you really are outstanding. I love that they're not set up. Everything is very casual. The lighting, it's very loose. It's very improvisational, and you do an excellent job with that. However, I will say, being a controversial topic, as you mentioned it is a controversial topic, and it's been done a lot. There are a lot of books and people who find this to be, they're drawn to it for various reasons, and I think most of them generally are going to be sincere, but it's something that you can't help but kind of put into that category, and you even kind of apologized for it in the letter here. So what I'm saying is that because it's been done a lot, and I do think you do excellent portraits, is I kind of want to see more dimension in the work that's in here. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, I would suggest looking at photographers who have done this really well. Mary Ellen Mark comes to mind. Another one is Graciela Iturbide, who is amazing. People who have worked with people with, as you put it, lower social status, whatever that means, but alternative lifestyles, that kind of thing. And look at how they take it from a documentary standpoint, because both those women interact with their subjects. They get to know them. It's a similar approach to what you're doing. Having said that, I do think the portraits are beautiful in here. Now, the only thing that just kind of bothers me that I can't deal with, and I talk about this a lot, I sound like a broken record, is you set this up to where I am viewing this book in horizontal format, and then I flip the page, and all of a sudden, on this one, not only do I need to go this way, but I need to go this way to look at it, and it's very difficult. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to maximize the print space that's on here, but as a result, you also have nothing but full bleed images in here. I'm missing the borders of the composition. That is something that I'm kind of picky about, and then just having to be able to turn the book is not a good idea to the viewer. And then when you mix them, it gets really difficult. So, for instance, portrait here, but then if we're going to look at the hands, I've got to go this way. I think that's a lot to ask of the viewer, to be honest with you, and I'm just being upfront with you. I would not do that. The other thing I want to comment, and this goes for a lot of things that are sent in, is that I think full bleed images have an effect when they're used here and there. You can go full bleed, something takes over, it kind of takes over the book and invites the viewer in. But I think balancing that out where you have borders on your pieces is really an important thing to do. Other than that, I do like the book, and I hope that you don't take offense to anything that I'm talking about with the concepts on here, but I would be careful about that, and I think I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, hey, this is really unique, because it's something that has been done a lot. And I think that if you're going to do it, and I think you have the right intentions, I don't question that at all, I think telling more of that story and finding a way to do that is really important, and finding a way to do it that's a little bit different than the barrage of work that you see in this vein, I think, is also important. So anyway, I'm going to link up to Paul's book. It's a wonderful cause. The book is really nice despite my problems with his layout, but he did a great job on here, so do support it, and money does go to a good cause on that as well, so that's kind of a win-win. So anyway, I want to thank everybody who sent stuff in today. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, later.